Well, welcome back. If you guys, I showed up a little late today, so sorry if you guys didn't get your handout. It's really simple. It's just this one today. The hearts. Did everybody get one? Yeah, which we're not going to watch today, so we'll just move that to next week. Yeah, and then if you missed a week or two, feel free. I got the old ones from previous weeks. Today, we're going to do something totally different, and you're either going to love me or hate me. Yeah. So I want you guys to, let's see, how many people do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 16, 17. Okay, let's break up into, we're going to break up into groups today. Alright. I'm going to make you guys do the talking and teaching today. So, grab a partner. You can be with your spouse or not. And then there's going to be a few groups of like 3. So, go ahead and, well, you guys are probably already together. But I'm going to give you guys this. What we're going to do today is we're going to put all of our training that we've had so far into practice today. Okay? So what we're going to do is these are passages from the Sermon on the Mount, and you'll be given the passage from that part of the sermon, and then what the parallel is. So sometimes they have a parallel in Luke, sometimes they have a parallel in Mark and Luke, and one of you lucky people doesn't get a parallel. You just get the one in Matthew. So that's it. So does everybody know what a parallel is? Yeah. Anybody not? Who's brave enough to say they don't know what a parallel is? I'll explain it. A parallel is when Mark or Luke have the exact same story, which is slightly different words. So I want you guys to look up not only the passage in Matthew, but the parallel in the appropriate other gospel. And below that passage is an interpretation. And you guys have probably heard all of these before. So you're going to hear an interpretation of that passage. And we're going to answer the question, what is wrong with this interpretation? Now, you might not think there's anything wrong with that interpretation. That's okay. And then we're going to break. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes here to go and do your homework. Grab your Bibles. Use whatever tools you have. You can get your phone. Look at multiple translations. You can look at the parallel passage in the other gospel. And then I'm going to give you guys a minute to figure out what you want to say about it. And then we're going to have each group come up or stand up and give a little presentation about what's wrong with this interpretation. So, you guys ready? All right, here you go. You each get one just to look over. So you guys get the first one, Matthew 5, 3 through 12. And you guys get Matthew 5, 13 through 16.
The speaker.
Okay, you guys get Matthew 5, 27 through 28. Okay, and you gentlemen.
We're just doing the
Oh, you're going to do it? Okay, cool.
5 to 3.
Let's see if we have enough groups here.
I don't really know.
What did I tell you guys? 27, right? 27, 28? Is that what I said?
What's your problem?
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Hang tight. I might break you guys up. Because I might need another person. So. All 4? Okay. Let's see. We'll see. I might have to break you guys up too. So let's do, okay, at least the stuff goes, you guys get Matthew 5:39.
Oh, I guess.
So hang tight, I'll come back to you ladies. Okay, you guys get, here you go. What's the next one on the page? Matthew 6, 1 through 4. You guys are the lucky people that don't have a parallel, so that's easier.
You don't have a parallel?
Okay, we are going to break you guys up. So, sorry, I love you guys, but we're going to have to break you guys up. So you guys will be Matthew 6, 25 through 34. You guys can find out whoever wants to do it. Why don't you guys do it together? So you guys will be Matthew 6, 25 through 34. Okay. And then Yeah, you guys, can I break some up?
That's
you
just
might
got
be
the
the
group
only
for-
person. Is it Hess?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're just supposed to focus on the first passage?
Just the first one, yep. So you read that passage, dig into it, read around it, figure out the context. So remember guys, the point is to read the context, get the context figured out, figure out what's going on with the passage, read around, read some parallels, do whatever you need to in your homework to figure out how we can answer if this is a bad interpretation or not.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you tell us we asked for 614? You don't have a parallel, right? 614 that we're doing?
Oh, you don't have a parallel on that one. You're on 6:1 through 4.
That's
Yep.
on the we're doing.
That's it. Yep.
I didn't know my glasses.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. How come making any different?
No, go to the next page. We're doing the answer to 614. Okay. So,
What, you don't trust us? No, just kidding.
If you think it's a perfectly satisfactory interpretation, then go for it. But I would challenge you to look deep into the passage and see if there's more to it.
Deep and wide.
which one do we have to 6?
Yourselves? Hey, that you did not do your charitable deeds in the end and be seen by them. Otherwise, you have no reward from your Father in heaven. Take heed that you do
You guys get stuck? Need help? Questions? Raise your hand. I'll come on over and help you.
Take heed that you will not do your charitable deeds beforehand to be seen by them. Otherwise, you have no reward from your Father in heaven. And the other three are not. Paul, read the second one. Actually, I need my glasses too.
Matthew 6. Take heed that you do not do your charitable deeds before men to be seen by them. Otherwise, you have no reward from your Father in heaven. Therefore, when you do a charitable deed, do not send trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory for men. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But when you do a charitable deed, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. That your charitable deed may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will himself reward openly. I get it. Huh?
Pray, you should not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogue.
Well,
Corners of the street.
at first glance, it seems to be a correct interpretation.
But you pray, God, you're great. Your Father who sees in secret.
It only says
The only caveat would be that
It is inappropriate.
talks about poverty or rich, or the God and get through the eye of evil. So if you cross-reference those other passages, it's plausible that some of the passages
well, it says
Well, it just seems to me that this is really limited to.
that your charitable deed may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will himself reward you openly.
Recognize lots of different.
Somebody else's.
I believe so.
Too much jealousy.
So you're saying that Luke passage sounds good?
I didn't read it, but I was just like reading it. anybody who's not taught just in a particular church.
Absolutely.
Being for material you mean?
No, for experience, they're talking about does this person apply?
Poor in spirit is broader than.
That's true. So we don't agree with that statement.
So not just recognizing how simple one is before God, but how weak, how ignorant,
Oh, just the variety that different people are experiencing. Like, you know, your temple, or when you, there's justice, Christ.
If you guys are having trouble finding a parallel for some reason, BibleGateway.com is your best friend because it has the link just right there. You can just click on it and it goes straight to that parallel passage. So if you're in Matthew 5, 3 through 12, it'll give you the parallel right there. Just click on it, it takes you right to it. So once again, this is where our technology is very helpful.
We're not to advertise what we do.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be.
So as an individual, we agree with that. That's what the Bible says.
Okay, so much less somebody else's lives. I don't know. I don't like there's too much jealousy or too wrong motive for any so much. I don't think that's what the person's saying. I think this is saying is that they're not doing it to glorify man or to them. They do it for God because we're walking. Our motive is behind it.
If you're doing something for God, then God's the only one who needs to know that.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Parallel? Okay.
No.
No?
I've got verses really
Oh, okay.
what they say and say what they mean. There's not,
Yeah, you're in the right spot. Yep.
other than the only thing I agree with is appropriate for church, which says the church has to have the budget to operate these days.
I agree. Too much jealousy or too wrong motives.
I do.
Yeah, if you're telling people how to use your money.
So when he announced his,
It's like,
Is that what the scripture is saying about it?
Isaiah, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me.
I know what you're saying. It may be so, but look at that.
Release from the captive, cover the sight of the blind,
Does it
and
do
to press the weak.
I mean, does
So in that context,
it say anything about justice?
oh,
yeah, Matthew 25. I was hungry.
Your footnotes about
let's see.
Let's see.
And it was good ruler. You lack one thing.
Yeah, so there's going to be a war here.
So I
The
have,
temple compound,
it leaves me wondering whether
13 large
chest
chests
talking
with
about
fundamental place of financial hypocrites often converted their gifts into the largest possible
All my parallels on my so sorry.
dropped into the
Yeah, there might only be
to give and go charitable deeds.
Yeah,
Secret complexity person's desire to please God more than people. That's different. That's different than the church. It's different.
Okay, which one are you in?
To hear him, to be healed of diseases, problem with
Pretty much is what it says here.
pure. So even though
Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing.
up here it's talking about
That your,
those who
in the same sentence, that your charitable deed is secret,
God stopped touching for power.
and your Father who sees it in secret.
We're looking like
Of course, read around, don't just.
what that is.
If you
And it is talking
your good deeds
clean spirit.
and your expecting praise for man.
Spiritual.
So that's an
He
interpretation
doesn't mention
that is common.
spirit.
And you are deciding
But
like
if
it,
you go up
don't like it, I
and
think
read
it's wrong or right.
the word, it seems like it's those were
But that's a parallel passage in Sermon on the Mount. What you're going to do is take this interpretation.
You're saying that's an argument that the Luke passage is talking about spiritual power.
yeah, they're saying that they're both talking.
Yeah, and you can replace, I should have actually replaced this, I stole this from my professor, but instead of saying that, somebody can say the bridge, or, missionary, or whatever, like, insert whatever charity you
Is
want.
this up here where it's talking about unclean spirits or trouble, unclean spirits, if they touched them and power came from them?
Yeah, so you argue that you think this is a good
It
interpretation.
seems like there is a connection.
And then it's
For me, spirit,
Yeah.
foreign spirit. So I think
How are you guys doing?
I don't know if you got
It sounds like we're just.
Two different things going on, and it's separate. To me, it's separated.
something different.
The church is different than man, and like
That's
like
a
our church or any church, people in the church
so
want to
if you
know
apply that,
what the church is doing.
does that mean?
So, to me, it is appropriate for the church to announce or even put in writing. This is what we're doing. This is where our money is going. What would for you to do?
Based on what you said, they're.
In my notes here, it says that, my footnotes, it says that people would change their money for the smallest coins. So they had a big bag of coins, and when they put their money in the pot, it made a bigger noise.
So what's the heart behind them doing this big show?
You're being more, you want praise from man.
Yeah.
You want people to think you're great.
Yeah.
It's like, this also says that if you charge for touching people's money, they won't say, because church power went out from him.
Yeah. So I'd say camp out on that. The fact that the passage is talking about bringing sort of self-aggrandizement, like you want people to notice you, and counter that with what this supposed interpretation is saying.
I don't know.
Because it's sort of a different, right? It's a different. These are all, like, the reason why I picked all these is because they are all very, very common, I believe, bad hermeneutical analysis of particular expressions. And you can look around and some of these are just there. You see them all over the place. But this is why we're doing this class. Because you can make the Bible teach whatever you want if you don't use the tools that we.
You could make it say what you think you want it to say.
Well, you might make it just for this inappropriate for church to.
Yeah. Totally. I agree with all those, but we have to make sure we support that with what the passage is saying and and what it isn't saying. So, because I agree with you, they should be super transparent. But if we're gonna really focus, make sure we apply it exegetically first, and then okay, cool, what is this passage actually saying? Why is this wrong? And then you can go and be like, churches should still be open about their finances. Yeah. So just make sure you hit the steps. So what was Jesus talking about? So exegesis. And then what's the theology behind it? And then what does that mean for us today? So do those 3 steps. That's the really important part. So, yeah. Good. Yeah.
But it doesn't
How you guys doing?
We need to get a translation of Luke 6:20. What's it?
Whoa,
We're trying to apply the principle. What would the word mean to the people listening to the word? As well as to us, because the question is Luke, the NLT says, God bless you who are poor. There's her opinion. What's your problem with that?
So you're gonna say, well, that's what I wrote down. What I just said is what I wrote down. So what about the
So yeah, it's the Greek is
So that should be
which
last.
means just poor, like a pauper, like somebody, a beggar or whatever. And then the Luke 6,
Yeah,
6:20.
yeah.
That's something we Greek, but it's the same word.
Thinking it's how it's different.
Also, it's literally the same word.
Yeah, so
So you guys have a trickier one because this is part. And we talked about this in the book a little bit. Luke had a particular agenda that Matthew did. So you guys consider like the authors. Well, actually, you don't even need to know the background of the two gospel writers and their bents to still interpret this properly. But I'm going to give you an extra tool. So do you guys know who's Matthew?
You, you're right there.
And what was Luke's audience?
Robert.
Yeah, it's very Gentile. And Luke's gospel is very different than Matthew and Mark's in that it's very much focused on the poor, more than any other gospel.
yeah, and that was one of the things that one possibility is that sort of a one-off thing, or maybe a one-off thing, but Jesus said the same thing in many other contexts. So it could have meant something different in one context versus another. And then if you take all the other instances where Jesus talked about the poor, there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
Matthew 25. So it seems to be a difficult question to resolve.
And keep in mind too, like Jesus was an itinerant preacher, so he probably said the same thing over and over as he went from doors to doors or whatever. So like we do. We have our little things we say. And he probably did too.
One of the things I was focused on is the description of the crowd.
Yeah.
In Matthew, it was just a general population. Where the Luke passage talks about those who were the spirit and those who were suffering came to be healed, to touch them. Yeah. So Luke's focus very much on this word and spirit. Even though in the passage 6:20 it doesn't mention Holy Spirit. He's mentioning as being in the audience and so forth. Seem to be those
Which you're taking the poor spirit.
So don't forget the steps too. So step one is exegesis, which is what was Jesus saying to them then? What was the point? Well, how did they interpret it? Okay, and then what is the theology behind that? And then what does that mean to us today? So I like this passage to me, or this interpretation to me is coming from somebody who maybe lives in America and is rich, and maybe doesn't want to like talk about being poor, and would rather explain away actual importance. You know what I'm saying? So like consider kind of where the interpreter's agenda is coming from, and whether they're doing what's called eisegesis, which is inserting their own bias and thoughts into the passage, or if they're really exegeting wholly what the passage actually means. Good. All right, we're gonna do this thing. Just a couple more minutes, guys, and be ready to present. And yes, I'm gonna have you come up here for those that are watching on camera, so you guys can be up here. So be ready. Does anybody need any help with anything? You guys all pros? Ready to preach a sermon? Which one was you guys?
So he's saying it might be a little bit of your preparation.
You were using that word.
It's
relatively straightforward though.
they got their daily wage.
So the key is sort of steps.
They would have heard.
This interpretation.
Rabbit trail.
Crowds were. They might have heard it.
Because you want to build back up from scripture, just be like, well, I'm conservative, we didn't alcohol or Republican or whatever. Therefore, that's not how that's
She said I'm like James, I like
yeah,
rabbit trail.
Yeah.
That's jacked up.
Why does this happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's,
They like rabbit trail.
They might not agree with you.
Yeah. Well,
my
this,
interpretation of
yeah. Yeah, what is it, the audience at the time, something I had.
That's what I was.
For example, about the argument.
This one is a funny.
If the day that
Yeah.
church humor says that imperfect passed away, was perfect.
Well, that's three, that's one.
I was trying to find this where it says like
And there probably is some.
passed away today, every
You know, like, at the same time, not like go and live in a monastery. Yeah. Good.
why did you do it? But you like to.
I got four little
There might be a slight,
Stuff like that.
yeah, so what do you think of this interpretation?
big freezers.
That will lie. Like from the passage. This is the one.
Smith. Not other freezers.
So this interpretation is saying, yeah, you should judge relationships, just let it be.
You may not be able to see it, you know what I mean? I have it, I have it. I showed you this,
That's okay.
Okay, well, let's take issues aside, so that's, I agree with you, but the point is, we got already in the passage, so like,
reach out, like you're saying.
okay, so for us as a judge, then we can just get right. So here's the
got planned, and she's got a great plan to do, and she hasn't even known it. It's too much.
Because I think I wear this suit.
So, what about right here?
Like if I was in school, I had to
So, smack in the law, right? Is that better?
I didn't say that, I just said I wear this.
Yeah, you saw that.
Yeah, I get my thing.
So, you're saying,
Then I had to shave, man, to make it look different. Yesterday, I do need a haircut. I need a haircut. I trimmed my mustache. And then I had to do around the edges. It takes time to look this good, man.
So, he's not wrong, but the way so, like, when you see that church that says, we love the house, it's but there is a except haters. So, that's the whole plan. Because in reality, there are a lot of like can't help with that. I will more one. Okay, everybody. If you're not ready, well, too bad. Too bad.
It's so sad.
Okay, group 1. Matthew chapter, go ahead and come on up, group 1. Matthew chapter 5, verse 3 through 12. And here's the interpretation. Well, actually, let's read the passage first. Step 1. You guys can come on up if you want.
For Matthew.
Yeah, come on up, because I want you guys to be here on the camera. Matthew 5. Yeah, well, if you guys want to send the spokesman up, go for it. If you guys want to all come up, that's fine. All right. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again?
That's not going to be good.
Oops. 3 through 12. Oh, back up. Here we go. Okay, just kidding. Here we go. All right. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger for and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So their passage, or their interpretation of this is, when we read Luke 6:20, which is the parallel passage, we see that Jesus blesses the poor. We don't know what kind of poor he is talking about. We read Matthew's parallel in chapter 5, verse 3, and we see that Jesus has the poor has in mind the poor in spirit. Therefore, we know that he's not talking about material or physical poverty at all, only about recognizing how one is sinful before God. Go ahead.
So the question we pondered is are the two passages talking about a different kind of poor? And Lee pointed out from the context, why don't you say what you pointed out from the context, that an argument that they are talking about the same kind of poverty.
Yeah, to begin with, as we've started to learn in this course, is that first we look at the author. The author of one passage is Matthew, and Matthew was writing for the Jewish people. That was who his audience was he's writing to. Where in turn, Luke was primarily writing for the Gentiles. So we keep in mind that it's two different groups. If in the Luke translation, or in the Luke gospel, it just mentions the poor, it doesn't say poor of spirit. However, my argument is if you read above the verses leading into that, it talks about those coming from Jerusalem in the area, and they were of unclean spirit. And Jesus was healing them, and they, in fact, to the point that they would try to touch him in order to be healed. And it talks about that they were of unclean spirit. So you can say, okay, the two passages are the same. In the Matthew passage, it does mention unclean spirits, and in the Luke passage, the fact that they were, he touches on the people who were coming to Jesus were of unclean spirit, and Jesus was healing them. So the argument, that's argument in the background of where they were coming from and so forth, is that they are equal. The two Gospels are the same.
And I'm not sure whether they're the same or not, but I'll give the arguments of why they are different, because in the case of Matthew, a qualifying word of poor in spirit is there so that the audience would at least have a big clue that it was talking about a different kind of poverty, whereas in Luke it's not there, and perhaps the audience was, what Lee said was true of them, but also true that they were the typical subsistence, existence people of the day. And elsewhere in Jesus' teaching, he clearly talks about the poor having a particular place and priority in God's perspective. When he announced his ministry in Luke 4, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he anointed me to bring good news to the poor, clearly talking about material poverty. In Matthew 25, it talks about, I was hungry and you gave me food. How we respond to the poor is an indication of somehow related to the Last Judgment. In Mark 10, the rich young ruler was told, hey, you've qualified for everything else, but go and sell everything you have and give it to the poor. And it goes on and on where you see Jesus giving a particular place to the poor, which would support the Luke interpretation of the passage where it speaks, it does not have that qualifying word, poor in spirit.
Good. All right, give it up. Yeah, all right. So, yeah, funny enough, sometimes there can be dual meanings in the scriptures, right? Are we talking about poor in spirit or poor, like, physically? Yes. The answer is yes. So, and it's interesting to note, and they mentioned too, Luke's gospel is very much focused towards the poor, the oppressed, women, things like that, and elevating them. And so it would be very appropriate for Paul or for Luke to put a little spin on there and focus on poor as in poor, and just leave it poor and not say in spirit, because he had his little thing he wanted to say, which is great, because now you got a greater expansion of how you can apply this Sermon on the Mount to that. So
saying they're poor because of the Son of Man, you know what I mean, and rejected because of that. Not
Yeah.
like that is like.
Yep. All right, next one. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people put a lamp under its bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Come on up, guys. So their interpretation is, to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world, one has to be different from the world. This requires separation from the world. The best way to ensure that Christians are not corrupted by the world, and thus lose their saltiness, is for Christians to be sure that their closest friends are believers, that their children go to Christian schools, that their fellowship is regularly with other Christians, including frequent church attendance, and that they refrain from being seen in public with non-Christians in places that might lead others to question the nature of their activities. Okay, come on up, guys.
Well, we totally agree with that.
Come stand a little bit over this way, so you're not in the window because the back flank is bad. Yeah.
I was just kidding. Go ahead, you start.
Well, and in the parallel passages, it seems to just include kind of that first part where he's talking about the saltiness, and if you lose the saltiness, what good is it? It's just for the trash. But it doesn't go on. In Matthew, it goes on to talk about the city on the hill and the lamp, and how you're not going to cover a lamp with something. You're going to make it where everybody can see it. And and he says specifically, if I can read it with my glasses in the dim light up here, it says, he says, in the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who's in heaven. I mean, it seems pretty clear from the part that Matthew includes here that he's wanting us to show that to other people. It's not that we just are doing it in front of others who are like us. I don't know, to me that it really feels like one of those where the people who have this feeling, and Sherry was commenting how it seems like a real thing of fear. Fear of being corrupted by the world, fear of, how they might affect me or my kids or whatever. And it kind of feels like it's one of those where they're taking this passage to say what they wanted to say, that we should be separate and not involved with others. But it seems pretty clear to us that he's saying that we're to be that saltiness. We are supposed to be different from the world, for sure. But we're not supposed to be separated from the world.
Yeah, that's kind of how we see it. The way, like to be the light of the world is to sort of spread, not be exclusive and not be segregated, but spread what you believe and, be around everyone so that people can sort of show an example and show that love and generosity and kindness and all that sort of thing that's about those passages rather than just be segregated and exclusive. So.
And we talked about too how there are so many things that have even changed, in our own lifetimes of, how people used to dress coming to church, and how it's so much more casual now than it was like when we were children. And we didn't really talk about this in our group, but Sherry and I have talked about this before, and while we were that way when we were younger, that our parents, we always dressed up for church and everything. I don't feel comfortable wearing jeans to church. But somebody that does, I don't exclude from them either. I still talk to them like I would anybody else. And that's how it should be, that, if it's not a sinful thing, we're including others, showing grace just like God shows us grace.
Yeah, embracing, and not being so rigid and segregated, I think.
So, anyway, I guess that's it.
Good. Yay! Give it up. All right, we're going to jump around here, so some of you guys are going to get lucky and not have to go up here because we're running out of time here. So let's jump to Matthew 6, 1 through 4. This is a good one. All right, so it says, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. So when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honored by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their full reward, or reward in full. But when you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." Here's the interpretation. "It is inappropriate for a church or parachurch organization to publish a full and detailed account of its financial assets and expenditures. Jesus clearly said that when Christian giving is involved, we are not to let our left hand know what our right hand is doing, much less anybody else's hands. Too much jealousy or too many wrong motives regularly emerge when we are too explicit with how we use our money." Take it away. Come on up.
All right, so we kind of don't agree with the first sentence about it being inappropriate for the church or organization to publish what they're doing, as far as giving goes, because the body of the church kind of expects to know where their money is going. It's different for a person. If you announce your good deed in public, then you're expecting your praise from man and not from God. If you're doing something for God, then God is the only one that really needs to know what you were doing. One of my footnotes is in the past that the people were exchanging their coins for smaller coins, so they had a bigger bag of coins, and it made a bigger sound when they put it in the pot. So they're expecting praise from the people in the church and not from God. And as far as your left hand and right hand, we agree, we never really understood that, but if you are your left hand and the body of church is the right hand, then you're not supposed to announce it to the whole body. And kind of in the end, God wants us to seek His praise and not the praise of others.
Good. Yay. Is there anything to add? No? Okay, cool. Yeah. So this passage is really it's Jesus speaking about not bringing praise to yourself in your giving. This passage has nothing to do with churches or nonprofits talking about their financials. It's a very different issue. I think it's interesting, this little interpretation is they say too much jealousy or too many wrong motives regularly emerge when we are too explicit with how we use our money. Well, that might be true, but that's a whole separate issue. It has nothing to do with this right-hand, left-hand thing.
I would like to know how many corporate jets the ministry has.
We have one for each of us. I have one, Nate has one. Yeah.
That's where Charity Navigator comes in.
Yeah.
Very good resource because my mother gives to various things. And I look them up on Charity Navigator and I think, whoa.
Yeah. Yep, Charity Navigator is really good. They have a ranking system, so it's pretty cool. So, all right, we'll do one more, and then we got to get going here. Matthew 6, verse 25. Oops, turn the page. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life. And I'm actually going to skip this one because you guys might be pretty familiar with this one. But it's the do not worry scripture, okay? And here's the interpretation. The reason why so few Christians tithe today is that they don't really believe God's promises in this passage. Jesus is quite clear. If you give generously and sacrificially to the Lord's work, he guarantees that you will have enough income for all your needs to be met. Especially see verse 33. What's verse 33? Verse 33 says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Test him and see if it's not true. You can also look at Matthew 7, verse 7, or chapter 7, verse 7 through 11. Ask and ye shall receive. Begin today by writing a large check to, insert your charity. So to the Bridge Church of Bear Creek, or to the Lee Eder Fund. Okay? And wait to see how he will surprise you with monetary returns you've never anticipated. All right, come on up, group. Explain your thoughts. Come on, all three of you come up, and then you guys can all be on camera. How about this? Maybe you guys can support each other, yeah.
We just thought that this passage didn't touch on the, generosity per se. It was more just not worrying and storing up for yourself and trusting the Lord to provide. And it's not about tithing at all, so we thought that was kind of taken out of context. And then I'm sure there is a reap in group somewhere in Scripture, but it's not in this passage either, as far as if you give, then you will be, to us, you'll be given something back. But it is in the context of, just not worrying and where your treasure is, and not trying to, so there's some truth, because it does say in Luke to give to the poor after that passage. So, but in this particular passage, we did feel like they were taking liberty to talk about their issues of tithing and giving to their ministry. So, do you have
And
anything
also
to
that
say?
we're not supposed to test God.
Yeah.
This passage isn't about testing God, it's about trusting God. And when you test God, you might get some other, outcomes from that versus putting your belief in him. I mean, you trust him for what you're going to do, but he doesn't want you to worry about it.
That he
And it's not
guarantees
about
you
the
will have
money.
enough income. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
not about
guaranteeing that you'll have so much income. It's just that you will be provided for your needs. Yeah. So.
Yay. All right. Woo, give it up. All right. So, of course, this passage isn't saying don't give. It's just saying that if you don't expect that if you give, you're suddenly going to get a bunch in return. That's prosperity religion. That's not in the scripture. So, cool. So this, take these home. There's one we didn't even cover at the bottom. We didn't even have a group. But take these home. Go over them yourself. They're fun. And do the steps. So I want you guys, this is where the homework is, where all we've studied, putting this into practice. So step one, what we call exegesis, okay? What was Jesus, in this case Jesus, what was Jesus saying to the people then, there? What was the cultural context? How would they have understood it? And get that down first. Then figure out, okay, cool, what's the theology behind this? What is being taught here about God, about the scriptures, about whatever? And then, only then, do you go, okay, what does this mean to me now today in my culture? And to me in my church or whatever, okay? So as long as you follow those 3 steps, you'll be a great Bible interpreter. And that's the whole purpose of our exercise today. So homework for this week, we're going to keep reading the How to Read the Bible for All It's Worth book. We'll read chapters 5 through 8. It seems like a lot, but it's actually not that many pages. So, and then we'll pick up next week and keep going. So, thanks guys for participating today. Hopefully it was helpful to kind of go through this process. It can be challenging at times to kind of skirt through some of the idiosyncrasies and delicacies of how do you interpret and how do you apply some of the stuff to really, really sensitive cultural context at times. So, Good work, everybody. And we will see you in about half an hour. Thanks, everybody.